good morning. My name is Barry Macmahon, CTO of Knabu. We are becoming a licensed clearing bank in the UK, but that's enough about us, because this isn't a presentation about the company. We're talking about creating a hybrid organization which is a bridge to the fiat infrastructure, which is necessary for the blockchain industry to flourish, and it's being hindered at the moment by being blocked basically by the banking industry. So we're going around the cartel and going directly to the Bank of England and getting a reserve account directly there. So, let's see if this works. Okay, so there's some inhibitors to the move of the economy to decentralized structures. So this is about decentralized organizational structures, ownership structures versus centrally administered institutions like banks. So how can we, use decentralized organizations to migrate the actual economy away from central institutions? So to this point, okay, this is a long topic, so I'm going to skim over quite a few things, but hopefully some good questions at the end. So at this point, we have a couple of different levels of decentralization in blockchain space. The first generations were like Bitcoin, fully decentralized, or more or less decentralized, but fully trustless. So proof of work was the consensus algorithm which allowed this to be possible, and there is no trusted third parties. The whole system is self-contained. And we have Ethereum, where all of the state changes within Ethereum are final and governed by the protocol of the system. Developers decide the future of the protocol, but you still require the miners to actually accept those changes before they go live. And then we have the next level where, okay, so people are using trustless systems, but they've put a centrally controlled token on top. Is this really enough? We also have companies where they are creating closed blockchains, permissioned blockchains. Well, what's really the point of a permissioned blockchain, I would ask? If you still need to go through central authorities to have access, well, I mean, why don't you just use a tamper-proof database? I mean, what's really the point of a permission blockchain, I would ask? Why do we want to decentralize ownership in any case? What's the motivation for this? Well, we can actually make capital more social, dare I say. Mainly, I think a strong motivator is to improve the access to people to the production of value in the economy. Monopolies essentially are a zero-sum game. The winner takes all. When you have a monopoly, you lock out all of the players, apart from the owner of the monopoly, to the actual production of value in the economy. So it's a highly elitist system. Elites are highly optimized for narrow sets of criteria. They don't adapt to new situations. If the situation changes, the elite is not optimized anymore. So, we can enable a genuine and efficient sharing economy, orientated towards the interests of all of the actual users of the system. People refer to Uber and Airbnb as sharing economy. I disagree. I don't think they're sharing much of their profits, and they're probably piping them off to some, low-tax jurisdiction. And we could even refresh capitalist economics by giving people tools to explore alternatives to modern business structures today, like the decentralized organizations that we're seeing emerging. So while monopolies are zero-sum games, cooperative organizations are net positive games, so all the people benefit from working together to create some value together. So, of course, another implication is the security problem. When big companies own all people's private data, you create a honeypot, it creates a big target for hackers. We've had plenty and plenty of examples where people's private data has been breached, government data, banking data. It's ridiculous. If you give people more ownership and control over their own data, we sometimes refer to this as personal data sovereignty or data self-sovereignty, whereby people own their own data, they can control who has access to it, they can change their minds after they've given access to it and take it back. We remove this problem of honeypots. So what tools have we got to decentralize actual governance. Ricardian contracts are one of the early things as developed by Ian Grigg in the late 90s. It's a simple matter of human readable contract which we can digitally sign and build up an economy and an organization around that contract. It's also been used in EOS for their governance. They use the Ricardian contract for the constitution, so they put that into the Genesis block of the EOS network to bootstrap that, and that's the rules. We all abide by those rules. Enforcing is a different story. We can have more, we should have more transparent dispute resolution processes in running blockchain networks. We can see that in Bitcoin, for example, if somebody steals funds, you can't undo that, so that has total finality. There's no dispute resolution whatsoever. We see with things that go wrong with Ethereum contracts or wallet hacks and things like that, the dispute resolution process is not really very well defined, and sometimes criticized for a lack of transparency. We do have the potential to have more objective dispute resolution if the processes are more transparent, more people can observe, they can decide for themselves. And of course, if we improve the governance in blockchains, we should help to reduce disagreements and things like long-running forks, which are a problem. So we can see many examples of long-running forks due to people's fundamental disagreements with some decisions. But then, are we enabling the wisdom of the crowd or just mob rule? If we take the example of the DAO hack, for example, which was one of the first issues that really brought to the forefront this problem of governance, because basically a smart contract was used in a way that was not planned by the developers, and they referred to those as stolen funds. Now, the people who ran the exploit didn't agree with that. They were stolen funds because they said that they used the contract in the way it was published, and that's the way everybody had agreed. So there was a dispute. They had to, very quickly come up with a process to try and resolve this dispute. Of course, they didn't predict it, so they weren't really very prepared. And as a result, their process wasn't very transparent, and so they were criticized a lot for the lack of transparency. They ran a lot of polls with their users, but essentially the conclusions of those polls were executed centrally. And then, of course, in the end, the market gave a price discovery to the quality of that decision. ETH Classic at one point was running at 30% of the value of Ethereum, so that is basically the market telling you this is how bad that decision was, essentially. But of course, in any case, it's all very well running things, using blockchains, decentralized organizations. They will always need to refer to something outside of the blockchain system, which they can't measure directly. So we refer to these as untrusted or unavoidable, like trusted externalities. So you can't do know your customer process inside Ethereum. You need to actually physically look at somebody's passport, and it's a process that is developed by the state. You can't measure a sensor within Ethereum. A sensor is a trusted thing. So there's some things which you'll never be able to do within the blockchain system, which are important for the governance. And we've even seen like admin functions in crowd sale contracts where the company just has an admin function because there's something that they need to do which is outside of the blockchain process. So they need to know your customer. They need to take a fiat currency for sale, so they just have an admin function. They just run that function. And people need to also wonder, why do they even have a token? If you're using a token, really it should have a function within a distributed organization. It shouldn't be just a route to funding with no justification. It can't just exist in a vacuum. It should exist within an actual economy. And what should justify its existence is the shared ownership and the value created by a distributed application. Bitcoin, of course, is an example of a distributed application which creates value by the number of users that actually use it. So the value is generated by the number of people involved. So okay, so what are some easy things that we can see that would motivate us to migrate the economy to a more decentralized model? We can improve the trust in the custodians of assets. If banks hide away a lot of the detail of how they work inside, people don't trust them as a result. Simple thing to publish some of that, make it more available. Potentially you can avoid more events like the financial crisis if you can see, you can predict this coming from a long distance when you can see all the data. So you can, more of that insight will help to identify systemic problems earlier. We should use more reputation-driven features in dApps, like the platform we're developing ourselves, which is based on reputation and stake. And more evidence-based decisions should help as well. As I was saying before, elitism is suboptimal in the face of change. So more horizontal structures, less elitist, more adaptable. And so I shall finish quickly. Sorry, 1 second. So some things which will help very quickly, just to wrap up, to help people to adopt blockchain networks for real-world situations is maybe a softer finality instead of having totally irreversible transactions. Allow some sort of dispute resolution, allow some sort of process that you can actually change things after, which so you don't need to always hard fork to make any change. I think it's very important as well to to consider the abstraction of settlement as opposed to the asset types on top. The settlement itself has no barrier, regulatory barrier, to being a totally universal and totally free thing. The asset types, people might get upset about certain types of asset types. Central banks are probably not going to accept completely anonymized digital cash anytime soon, but that doesn't mean that you can't settle something which is know your customer both ends. And of course, using dispute resolution processes that are compatible with state law. Some other things which have no regulatory barrier to using are, just issuing proofs of outcomes which are important. Proof of solvency. There's no reason why an organization shouldn't be allowed to prove that they're solvent, and that should improve trust. And there's no reason why they can't do that. And we should start with items which are indisputable, that they should be final. Like legal reporting requirements. A lot of organizations are required to report things like their taxes and things like this. They're required to do this already. So, that's not, you might as well put it down on a blockchain provable way and indisputable. So, okay, just to wrap up, this is our team. Developers are around the room. They'll be around here for the event, and happy to answer any questions.